Hello and welcome to Larpride. Today I'm going to show you how to make a simple linen tunic, or in this case shirt. Really, tunic is just a shirt that is a bit longer. I made this as my underwear for my wool tunic, so I made two of them at once. And really, a tunic or a shirt is a part of many a medieval costume. So I was kind of surprised myself. I've never made a video about it. So if this is something that interests you, like and subscribe, and I show you exactly how I made this. Let's start with the fabric. This is unbleached natural linen, quite soft to the touch. This was sold as Bauernlein or farmer's linen. And it's even of B quality, so not the top of the shelf stuff. But for this project of an underwear tunic, this is good. This is the pattern I'm copying onto the fabric, starting with the chest piece. I made it myself. It's fairly basic. So we've got a rectangle, and the length of the rectangle shall be the desired length of the tunic from the shoulders down. Normally I would make this a meter, but I wanted to make a more shirt-like tunic, so I made it a bit shorter, and in fact I made it about 10 centimeters too short, and I'll probably live to regret this. The width of the chest and back piece shall be your chest circumference divided by 2 plus 10% for comfort and shrinking when you're washing it, plus 2 centimeters for seams, and for me that's about 70. At the top you've got the piece where your head goes through, and I only bother to do anything special for that in the front piece of the tunic. So I've got this cut out that has your neck width, then a half circle that goes down to about half your neck width, and then cut downwards that goes down again half your neck width. For me that's 18 centimeters. On the right we've got the piece that will become the arm of the tunic. It is a trapezoid with a height that is the circumference of your biceps plus 10% plus 2 centimeters. For me that's 55. And the smaller height is your hand circumference, not your wrist. Your hand circumference plus 10% plus 2 centimeters, so you can put your hand through it. For me that's 35. The length of the piece shall be the length of your arm from the shoulder down. The small rectangle below that will be sewn in under the armpit, so you can raise your arms and have more mobility, and a 10 by 10 rectangle shall be fine. And finally the triangle in the bottom right you only need to even include when you make a very long tunic. This will make it a bit wider below your waist, so you can move your legs around freely. Using my tailor's triangle, long ruler and measuring tape, I copy this pattern onto the fabric, starting with the front. And I'm doing 2 tunics at once, so I've got a double layer of fabric here on my table that I will just cut out in one go. Back piece, fairly easy, just a rectangle. You could place your front piece onto the fabric and use that as a pattern, but in my experience it's better to measure that again, so you have less of an error. Next up are the arm pieces. And after cutting out the first arm, you can flip this over to mark and cut out the second arm. And lastly, the square for under the arm. We start sewing the pieces together with the front and back piece, and we will sew them together at the shoulders. Using my sewing machine, you could sew this by hand, but it would take forever, and with a sewing machine you can pump out tunics such as this within 1 hour. And the shoulder seam is one of the most stressed, so I'm sewing this twice with just a simple straight stitch. And then I'm zigzagging the edge of the seam, hemming it to prevent the fabric from unraveling when you are wearing it, and especially when you are washing it. I'm just using my widest zigzag pattern here to achieve that. You will also notice me going back and forth at the beginning and end of every stitch I make to keep the stitches from unraveling themselves. Because the shoulders are such a stressed area, I'm pushing my seam here flat and sew it on along the zigzag line one additional time. And while I was at it, I folded the back of the neck over once and just went along there. Later this will be folded over again to create two folds. But this finishes the first stitch. Now we can sew on the arms. And you have to do it like this. Put them on the outside of the tunic, inwards. So when you sew it on, the seam will be on the inside of the tunic together with the rest of the seams. Double check and make sure you're doing this right. I can't count how many times I have sewn the arms on wrong. Now, to center this, I just fold it in half and then put the center of the fold right over the shoulder seam. And then arrange the fabric so I can make the stitches without disturbing the position that I just found out by folding it. And once again I'm going over with a simple line stitch followed by zigzag, and this is enough of real time. Let's speed this up. Next up are the squares for under the armpits, and these are a bit tricky to sew on. You have to make sure that all your seams will be on the same side, on the inside of the tunic. Start by placing the corner of the square right where the arm meets the chest piece. Once again, simple line stitch. But once I reach the corner, I have to pull the square 90 degrees to align it with the rest of the tunic, with the chest piece. Also reinforce that corner where the three pieces meet. The tricky part here is to stitch together only what you want to be together and not stitch together everything else as well. And after that, I'm hemming this seam with a zigzag stitch. Now all of the pieces of the tunic are together. You have to sew in two more if you do the triangles at the bottom. But it's time to sew this together, starting at the arm and then going downwards towards the bottom end of the tunic. Once again, the tricky part here shall be the square under the armpit. Now there are a few unhemmed remaining edges. The arms, the head opening and the bottom. And to keep these from unraveling, to hem these, I'm folding them over twice. Make sure that the folds are on the inside of the tunic, and then I'm just stitching them down with a simple line stitch. And this is a very effective method of keeping this from unraveling. If you want to go for a more rustic look with frayed edges of your tunic, you can skip this step, or you can hem it in with zigzag or a more professional stitch that I'm not using. But this is the method that works for me. The neck piece is a bit tricky to hem this way because of all the corners that I cut in there that this design has. For example, where the front and the back meet. And I do it this way. If I'm unable to do a clean double fold, I will instead hem it by zigzagging back and forth a few times to secure the edge of the fabric. And that is important at the corner where the front and back meet, and especially and the sharp corner right in the front at the end of the cut I made there. Pretty much impossible to double fold there. All that is left to do is pulling this outside out and trying it on. And there is a bit of a tight fit. Maybe I should have given myself a bit more breathing room here. And it's a bit short, but it fits. This finishes the build. Thanks for watching and goodbye.